Good morning and welcome to English Lessons on Iman TV. We're going to start our lesson today with the listening comprehension, and then we will continue with grammar, and then finally vocabulary on occupations or jobs. So without any further delay, let's start our lesson on the listening comprehension. But of course, our listening comprehension also includes a lot of words. So I'd like to teach you the words first, and then I will read the passage to you. So the first question, the first picture I have is this. Where does your coffee come from? We all know that what? Many of us, those of you that you're watching us right now, you're drinking coffee. So this lesson is about coffee in the morning. So where does the coffee come from? So that's what we're going to talk about, and this is what the listening comprehension is going to be about. So some words that you need to know. So look at this picture and tell me, what do you see here? You see what? This is what we call it coffee plant. So this is the plant from which we get our coffee. So please repeat after me together. Please say coffee plant. Coffee plant. What about this one? You have seen this picture before. What do you call this? This is coffee what? Coffee beans. Right. Please repeat. Coffee beans. Coffee beans. What about this one? Look at this one. This is what? This is leaf. But because it is the plant from the coffee, we call it what? Coffee leaf. Coffee leaf. And then if it's one, we call it one leaf. But if it's more than one, then you make it plural. Two leaves. Okay? So here we have what? More than one leaf. So we call it what? Leaves. So L-E-A-F is one leaf. But if it's two, three, or more, we call it what? Leaves. Okay. Coffee leaves. What about this one? This is something that we put not only for coffee plants, but for all other plants. What do you call that? It's called fertilizer. Please repeat. Fertilizer. Fertilizer. And fertilizer is basically what? Plant food. So we give it to the plants to grow better. Okay? It's richer. So that's that's the kind of what? Plant food. That's fertilizer. So what are these people doing? They're doing what? They're picking the coffee. Right. Please repeat. Picking coffee. Picking coffee. So this is coffee what? These are what? Shiny leaves of coffee. See? This leaf is what? It reflects, it shines. So we call it what? Shiny leaves. So these are other words. For some of them I showed you picture. For others I couldn't show you picture. I will give you the meaning. First, please repeat after me together, and then I will give you the meaning. So please repeat. Fertilizer. Fertilizer. Chance. Chance. Half. Half. Typically. Typically. Modern. Traditional. Traditional. Shiny. Pick. Protect. Protect. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. These are the words that you will hear when I read the passage about coffee this morning. Okay? So, fertilizer, I showed you the picture. It's basically plant food. It's something that you put for every plant to grow healthier and richer and better. Chance. Chance in this passage I'm going to give you is what? It means possibility. It means you have a chance. It means there is a possibility for you. Chance means possibility in this story that I'm going to read to you. Half means 50% of something. Okay, 50%. So please repeat, half, 50%. Typically simply means what? Usually. Not something rare and unique, but something usual. Typically. Please repeat, typically, usually. Modern means what? New, up to date. If something is new and up to date, we say what? Modern, like modern technology. You're watching your TV show through what? Modern technology. Traditional is just the opposite of modern. It means what? It means old-fashioned. Okay? Old-fashioned. Shiny means what? Bright. Shiny leaves means what? Bright leaves. Pick, it means basically taking or cutting the coffee from the tree. Protect means to keep safe. You protect somebody. You keep that person safe. You protect a plant. You protect an animal. You protect a child. You keep it safe. You protect your home, for example. Unfortunately simply means what? Unluckily. Okay? So please repeat one more time. Fertilizer, chance, half, typically, modern, traditional, shiny, pick, protect, unfortunately. Now, I have some questions for you. I want you to listen very carefully for those questions, and then I will read the passage 2 times to you. It's a rather longer passage than you used to hear, and then I want you to find the answers for these questions. Question number 1. Which countries produce the most coffee? I mean, so you name, I'm going to read to you the name of some countries that they make coffee. Produce means what? Make. They make coffee. They produce coffee. Like Japan is famous for what? Producing cars, making cars. So what countries, I'm going to read to you, produce the most coffee? Number 2, when does a coffee plant start producing coffee beans? Remember, we have to get the beans first. When do they produce beans? When you plant a coffee plant today, how many years, how many months should you wait before you can get coffee? So that's what this means. When does a coffee plant start producing coffee? And number 3, for how many years does the coffee plant produce fruit? So once you plant the tree, the coffee plant, and then you start getting the coffee from it, for how many years can you get coffee from one plant? I want you to listen to me very carefully, and some of these requires the listening to numbers, okay? Listen very carefully and get the answers. So I'm going to read to you this 2 times. That's why I have first reading and then second reading, and then you're going to answer questions. Listen carefully. I'll try to read it rather slowly. Coffee plant. How many cups of coffee did you drink yesterday? Where did the coffee come from? There is a good chance that your coffee came from one of these countries: Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, Ivory Coast, or Ethiopia. These 5 countries produce most of the coffee in the world today. Brazil produces about half of the world's crop of coffee beans. The coffee plant is really a small tree with shiny leaves. A coffee plant grows for about 3 years before it produces any fruit. After that, it produces fruit for about 40 years. The coffee bean is the seed of the fruit. It's difficult to pick coffee beans. Machines can do it well. So people pick most of the coffee beans by hand. Workers typically pick about 20 to 40 pounds of coffee beans a day. The old way to grow coffee plant is under large trees. The trees protect the coffee plant from the sun. The trees are also home to many kinds of birds. On many modern farms, however, farmers cut down the trees. They grow the coffee plants under the sun. Large farms can produce more coffee this way. Unfortunately, the coffee plants on these farms need more water and more fertilizer. And without the trees, the birds don't have a place to live. So it's a little bit longer passage. So I will read it one more time. See how many of these questions you can answer. Again, I will read the questions for you. Look at those questions. Which countries produce most coffees? Remember, I mentioned 5 countries. See if you could remember the name of 3 or 4 of them. Number 2, when does a coffee plant start producing coffee or coffee beans? So when you plant a tree, a coffee tree, after how many years does it start giving you coffee? Listen to that one. And number 3, for how many years does the coffee plant produce fruit? For after it starts giving you coffee, how long should you expect to get coffee every year? So listen for those numbers. This is the last time I read it. And later on, you'll of course read it. We will read it together. How many cups of coffee did you drink yesterday? Where did the coffee come from? There is a good chance that your coffee came from one of these countries: Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, Ivory Coast, or Ethiopia. These 5 countries produce most of the coffee in the world today. Brazil produces about half of the world's crop of coffee beans. The coffee plant is really a small tree with shiny leaves. A coffee plant grows for about 3 years before it produces any fruit. After that, it produces fruit for about 40 years. The coffee bean is the seed of the fruit. It's difficult to pick coffee beans. Machines can't do it well. So people pick most of the coffee beans by hand. Workers typically pick between 20 to 40 pounds of coffee beans a day. The old way to grow coffee plant is under large trees. The trees protect the coffee plant from the sun. The trees are also home to many kinds of birds. On many modern farms, however, farmers cut down the trees. They grow the coffee plants under the sun. Large farms can produce more coffee this way. Unfortunately, the coffee plants on these farms need more water and more fertilizers. And without the trees, the birds don't have a place to live. Now let's see if you remember the answers for these questions, or if you can answer any of these 3 questions. I'm sure you will give me some answers. Question number 1. Which countries produce the most coffee? Remember, I read some countries for you, 5 countries, I believe. So what are those countries? They are, what's your answer? Say it loud. I know I can hear you, but you could say it loud enough that you can hear yourself. The countries are Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, Ivory Coast, and Ethiopia. 5 countries. When does a coffee plant start giving beans? Beans that you could use it for coffee. It means they give you fruit. How soon? When? What's your answer? After how many years? What's your answer? Please say it loud enough that you can hear yourself. The correct answer is after 3 years. So you plant the coffee plant today, wait 3 years, and then it starts giving you what? Coffee. But how many years after that can it give you coffee? What's the correct answer for number 3? For how many years does the coffee plant produce fruit? The correct answer is for 40 years. Yes, for 40 years. Let me read the questions and answers again. Which countries produce the most coffee? The answer is Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, Ivory Coast, and Ethiopia. When does a coffee plant start producing coffee beans? After 3 years. For how many years does the coffee plant produce fruit? For 40 years. I know I read a very long passage. If you do not remember a lot, if you could remember this much, this is very, very good. You don't need to remember everything, or you don't need to know everything. As long as you can get the main message, that's the best thing. So if you have the answer for these 3 questions, congratulations, you've done a good job. Now let me ask you some more questions. I have 10 more questions, and you either answer true if the statement is correct, you put false if the statement is what? Wrong. Or you could say right, wrong, doesn't matter. Let me read this slide first, and then give you time to think, and then I will give you the answers. Number 1, Colombia produces half of the world's coffee. Is that correct? Remember, there were 5 countries. One of them produced half of the world's coffee. Which one was it? Was it Colombia? If yes, T. If no, false. Wrong. F. Number 2, the coffee plant is a big tree with shiny leaves. Is that correct? Is it a big tree? Did I read that? What do you say? True or false? Number 3, a coffee plant produces fruit for about 40 years. Is that correct? Number 4, a coffee plant grows for about 3 years before it produces any coffee. And number 5, the coffee bean is the seed of the fruit. Now, let's see if you have the answers. Remember, this is easier. You don't have to come up with what? With an answer. All you need to say what? True or false? T or F? Right or wrong? Number 1, Colombia produces half of the world's coffee. Right or wrong? What's your answer? Did you say right or did you say wrong? Okay, the correct answer is F, is wrong, because Brazil produces half of the world's coffee. Remember, there were 5 countries: Colombia, Brazil, Ivory Coast, Ethiopia, and there was one more other country. So these countries produce what? The world's coffee, but only Brazil produces what? Half of the world's coffee. Number 2, the coffee plant is a big tree with shiny leaves. What did you say? True or false? The correct answer is what? False. Why is it wrong? Because the coffee plant is a small tree with shiny leaves, not a big tree. It brings you big bucks, big money, a lot of money, but it's a small tree. Number 3, a coffee plant produces fruit for about 40 years. And that is what? True. A coffee plant grows for about 3 years before it produces any coffee. And that is what? Also true. The coffee bean is the seed of the coffee fruit. And that is also what? True. So false, false, and then true, true, true. Now let's look at 5 more questions and see if you remember the answers. Number 6, farm owners use only machines to pick coffee beans. Is that correct? All owners of the coffee farms, do all of them use machines to pick the fruit? Or do some of them they hire people to just pick it up, some people by hand? So what's your answer? True or false? Number 7, machines pick between 20 to 40 pounds of coffee beans a day. Is that right? Farmers used to grow coffee under large trees. Is that right? All coffee plants need a lot of water. Is that correct? All of them or some of them? Farmers don't use fertilizer in coffee farms. Now, let's look at number 6 again to see whether the answer is right or wrong. Farm owners use only machines to pick coffee beans. The correct answer is false. Why? Because they do not only use machines. Actually, they hire people to pick the coffee beans by hand, not just by machine. Machine pick between 20 to 40 pounds of coffee. Is that correct? The answer is what? No, it's not the machine that does this. It's a person. People does this. The workers, farmers. Farmers used to grow coffee under large trees. And that is what? True. They grow it in the shade of large trees. And all coffee plants need a lot of water. All of them? No, some of them. Those coffee plants that are under the shade of the tree, they don't need a lot of water. But those coffee plants that do not have the shade of another tree, they need a lot of water. And number 10 is, farmers don't use fertilizer in coffee plants. That's false because they do use fertilizer in coffee farms because most plants do need what? Some source of fertilizer. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to show you the passage. We're going to read it together. And we're going to read this one, I want you to pay attention to capitalization rules. And capitalization means what? That in English you've got what? Capital letters and lowercase letters, or what most people call it small letters. Like if you look here, this A is called capital, and this B is also capital. So there's a mistake here. Let me fix this one for you to show you how the small one looks. So let me say here, and let me show you this again to you. So this is capital letter, capital A. This one is what? Lowercase a. So I'm going to show you the passage, and I want to explain some basic rules of when you use capital letters and when you use lowercase letter. I also want you to look at some basic punctuation rules. Punctuation simply means what? Period, comma, and question mark. There are many punctuation marks, but we're going to talk about these 2 or 3. And of course, you'll answer some discussions questions. So I want you to look at it for a minute, and then I'm going to read this to you. And excuse me, and explain the rules. So I'm going to read it, and then I'll ask you questions and explain each paragraph, the rules of punctuation. The coffee plant. How many cups of coffee did you drink yesterday? Where did the coffee come from? There is a good chance that your coffee came from one of these countries: Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, Ivory Coast, or Ethiopia. These 5 countries produce most of the coffee in the world today. Brazil produces about half of the world's crop of the coffee beans. Now let me explain something here. Look, consistently the first letter of every sentence is capital letter. Every time you write, when you say it, when you talk, you don't have to worry about the capital and lowercase. You don't have to worry about punctuation. But when you write, you be very careful. Start every sentence with capital letter and end it with some kind of a punctuation. See? H of how is capital. How many cups of coffee do you drink? Because it's a question, you put a question mark. Next sentence, W must be capital. You cannot write a lowercase. It will be wrong. Where did the coffee plant come from? See, it's a question, you use a question mark at the end. there is a good chance, see, there, the first letter is capital T. There is a good chance that your coffee came from one of these countries. I also underline chance. This was one of the words we studied. What does chance means here? There is a good chance. There is a good, what's another word for chance here? Remember? We said what? Chance means possibility. So it's possible that your coffee came from one of these countries. And when you explain something, you put this punctuation mark. This is called colon. I will teach you this some other time. But this is called colon. Brazil is the name of a country. The name of a country, the name of a person, the name of a river, the name of a street. So specific person, a specific street, a specific river. They should always be what? Capitalized. So Brazil is the name of the country. Only you capitalize B. You only capitalize C of Colombia, I of Indonesia, I of Ivory Coast. If a country has two parts, like a phrase, each letter is capitalized. Ethiopia. And look, period. These 5 countries, again, T is capitalized because what? It's the beginning of the lesson, of the sentence. These countries produce most of the coffee in the world. Brazil produces about half of the world's coffee crop, crop of the coffee beans. So half is another word I underlined, and I also taught you what half means. Half means what? Half means, right, 50%. So Brazil produces 50% of the world's coffee. The coffee plant is really a small tree. See, the T of the is capitalized. Why? It's the beginning of the letter, of the sentence. And then, look, at the end you have to put what? A period. Then a coffee plant, again, the beginning letter should be what? The beginning of the sentence. You have to capitalize it. And then a coffee plant grows for about 3 years before it produces any fruit. Look at the period here. After that, it produces fruit for about 40 years. The coffee bean is used, the coffee bean is the seed of the fruit. And again, see, you start with capital letter and you end with what? With period. So this is the rule. Every sentence starts with the capital letter. You also capitalize the name of a specific country, a specific person, a specific city, a specific anything. The first letter is only capitalized. Use big letter of alphabet. It's difficult to pick coffee beans. Machines can't do it well. So people pick most of the coffee beans by hand. Workers typically pick between 20, it should be 40 pounds of coffee beans a day. So again, see, I of it is capitalized. W of workers capitalized. Why? Because they start a sentence. Okay? And M of machine is capitalized. And again here, workers typically pick. So typically was a word we studied before, and I underlined it. What does it mean? Do you remember? It means usually. Thank you. Next paragraph. The old way to grow coffee plant is under large trees. The trees protect the coffee plant from the sun. The trees are also home to many kinds of birds. On many modern farms, however, farmers cut down the trees. They grow the coffee plant under the sun. Large farms can produce more coffee this way. Unfortunately, the coffee plants on these farms need more water and more fertilizer. And without the trees, the birds don't have a place to live. Okay, again, the rules are what? You capitalize the first letter. The T of the is capitalized because it's the beginning of the sentence. In the next sentence, and then you see period at the end, and then the next sentence, T of the is capitalized again, and then T of the is capitalized again. And this sentence starts with on many modern farms. And again, you capitalize, you use a big O here. Why? Because the sentence starts with capital letter. So consistently, I capitalize all these what? Letters. So keep this in mind. When you write a sentence in English, you remember this. The first letter is always capitalized. If you use the name of a person, like Umaid, you make what? Capital O. Or Popal should be what? Capital P. Why? Because it's the name of a specific person. Whether it's the first name, last name, or middle name, doesn't matter. You have to capitalize the first letter. That's what I'm trying to convey to you. Now, I have some discussions questions. That means that we just talk about it, and sometimes there is no right answer and there is no wrong answer. The reason I ask you this question, I want you to just use English. Even if you did not understand the passage 100%, you can understand these questions. You can talk about that, okay? So, but I want you to only use English and give your answers loud enough that you can hear it yourself. Question number 1. Do you drink coffee? What's your answer? Do you drink coffee? Yes or no? I drink coffee. If somebody asks me, do you drink coffee? My answer will be what? Yes. And the next question is, how often? How often means what? Do you drink every day? Do you drink every other day? Do you drink twice a week or once a week? How often? My answer is what? Every day. When I wake up, I have to drink coffee or I cannot keep my eyes open. So that's the problem with coffee. Once you start drinking it, you get hooked on it and you cannot stop it. So how often? For me, it's every day. What's your answer? Do you drink coffee? Yes? Okay. How often? Or no? You could say no, I never drink coffee. It's possible. There are people that don't drink coffee. Question number 2. Is coffee a popular drink in Afghanistan? Why? Popular means what? Well liked. Everybody does it. Is that correct? Do most people in Afghanistan drink coffee? What's your answer? People, your neighbors, your friends who speak English will ask you this. Do people in Afghanistan, do most people drink coffee? What do you say? When I was in Afghanistan, which was a long time ago, the answer was what? No. At that time, we drank a lot of chai, tea, not coffee. Coffee was not popular, but I don't know now. If anybody came from Afghanistan recently, you can call and let us know. Is this popular now? Do people like it now? Do more people drink coffee now than in the past? I don't know that now. But in the past, I know, I'm from the past, I know about the past. So in the past of Afghanistan, people drank tea, not a lot of coffee. Why? What's the reason? Because coffee was expensive. Tea was cheaper. Afghanistan was a poor country and still is a poor country. We could not afford to buy coffee. Tea was the cheapest thing we could buy and drink. Question number 3. What's your favorite brand of coffee? Brand means what? The name of coffee. There are different brands of coffee. Brand could be by the country, like is it Colombian coffee, for example, Taster's Choice, for example, or it could be by these Peet's Coffee or Starbucks coffee. These are all different brands. Is there a specific type or name of coffee that you like? These are the questions people ask you. What's your favorite brand of coffee? What is your answer? For me, Starbucks is my favorite brand of coffee. Whether I go to the store or I drink at home, I drink Starbucks coffee. That's the one that I like the most. But it doesn't mean that's the best coffee. That's what I like. So what is your answer? So please give your answer. Or if you don't like coffee, you don't drink coffee, you don't have an answer for this. Number 4. What's a popular drink in Afghanistan? Now, today, do you know? I don't. I know it in the past. In the past, it was tea. Black tea was the most popular one. I don't know now. What is the answer? Is coffee now the most popular drink in Afghanistan? Somebody please let us know. Call me. There is a number on the screen so that I could answer this question intelligently next time. Question number 5. What are the advantages of drinking coffee? You know what advantages means? It's a new word for you. Advantages means what? Benefits. Benefits. What's good about drinking coffee? Like if I ask you, what is the advantages of speaking and reading and writing or knowing English? Well, there are many advantages for knowing English. Why? You can find a job better. You can probably read most of 80% of internet is what? In English. So if you can read English, if you can understand English, you can watch or do a lot of things on internet. Also, there are a lot of movies in English. You can have you could watch a lot of movies. You can also find better jobs. You can go to schools in most countries. It's what? In English. So these are what? The advantages of what? Knowing English. So now, what are the advantages, benefits of what? Drinking coffee. What do you think? What's good about drinking coffee? What's your answer? Well, I give you one answer. So you give me other ones. Number 1, I would say that what? One advantage of drinking coffee is what? It makes me alert. So when I drink coffee, I'm not sleepy anymore. I wake up. What's another advantage? Think about it. Give me the answer. There may be more than one advantage. But for me, the main reason I drink is what? It keeps me alert. So in the morning, I need to wake up and be alert. So I drink coffee. Before I come to this TV program, I drink a cup of coffee to keep me what? Awake, alert. What are the disadvantages of drinking coffee? Are there disadvantages? Disadvantage means what? Something that's not good for you. What's the disadvantage? Bad things about coffee. What do you think? Do you have an answer? What is bad about coffee? I can tell you one. You tell me another one. One thing which is bad about coffee is what? You get hooked on it. Once you start drinking, you drink and you cannot stop it. So it's addictive. In English we say addictive. But if you don't know addictive, don't worry. You get hooked on it. You can't stop drinking it. It's just like cigarette. You can't stop it. Once you start smoking, then you want to smoke and smoke and smoke. And if you don't, you get headache. The same thing with coffee. Once you get hooked on it, if you don't drink coffee, you get headaches, you can't keep your eyes open, you get tired, so you need coffee to do. So that's one of the disadvantages. So please repeat, advantage, advantage, disadvantage, disadvantage. So the advantage of coffee is what? It keeps you awake. The disadvantage is what? It hooks you on itself, that you cannot stop it. Do you have another answer for that? Do you? Well, there are some words in this particular slide. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time to go beyond this lesson because of time. So the words that I want you to repeat after me and know is popular. So please repeat after me. Popular. Popular. Another word is what? Favorite. Favorite. And then the two words that the last two sentences are advantage and disadvantage. Please repeat. Advantage. 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 And then disadvantage. 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 Okay. One more time, please repeat. Popular. Popular. Favorite. Favorite. Advantage. Disadvantage. I will read these questions one more time for you. I want you to think about the answers and kind of what? Talk to yourself if you don't have somebody to talk to. But the main thing is what? I want you to say something in English. Even if it's not a complete sentence, it's okay. Question number 1. Do you drink coffee? How often? Number 2, is coffee a popular drink in Afghanistan? Why? Number 3, what's your favorite brand of coffee? What's your favorite brand of coffee? Number 4, what is a popular drink in Afghanistan? What is a popular drink in Afghanistan? Number 5, what are the advantages of drinking coffee? What are the advantages of drinking coffee? And number 6, what are the disadvantages of drinking coffee? I have a lot more for you, but unfortunately this listening comprehension, the passage was very long and it took so long. If I start another segment of my lesson, I will run out of time completely. So I'll stop here and I will see you next week, and we will have the grammar and the vocabulary and also the past tense of the word. بیننده‌های بسیار محترم تلویزیون ایمان، درس امروز ما با امیجه به پایان رسید. تا هفته آینده شما را به خداوند متعال می‌سپارم. تشکر.